this particular fraudster knew the names and the details and everything about this particular solicitor, and was told that her account was hacked, and that she now needed to move her client money, which was a lot of money, into another account. And she did. Come Monday, she went into the branch and very quickly realized they knew nothing about it. It was a fraudster, and she lost a lot of money. And unfortunately, she had to close. Everything's becoming digitalized. Everything's becoming electronic, and fraudsters are using more complicated ways of, copying, cloning ID. There's no way of you knowing. I said, no, you're absolutely right.
So I really struggled to insure my Range Rover this year. So if anybody wants to buy a cheap Range Rover, just give me a shout. Noor, I know at least two people quite well who've purchased a property in the past. Fantastic deal. They negotiated an amazing deal, got the deal wrapped up really quickly, pushed through the legals and even the finance and stuff because it's such an amazing deal. And then it turned out the property had been stolen. How's that even possible?
These things do unfortunately happen. It's basically property hijacking, fraudsters who are hijacking in that case, it would be the seller's ID, perpetrating to be the actual registered proprietor. And these things can happen. It has happened to a few people that I know. Fraudsters are becoming a lot more intelligent. What they do, they can get a hold of people's IDs. It usually applies and is more relevant for mortgage-free properties.
So there's no debt on the property.
When the property is mortgage-free, they will perpetrate to be the actual owner of that property, produce fake ID, go to a solicitor's firm, put the property sort of up for sale with the local agent. And then, if the initial checks are not done by the particular solicitor who is selling the property, that mistake then manifests its way all the way throughout the whole of the transaction. The buyer buys the property, the money is exchanged from the buyer's solicitors to the seller's solicitors. And then it's not only until possibly the seller moves into the property and somebody comes knocking on the door and say, hang on a second, what's this all about? And then obviously everything unfolds, everything unravels, and sort of people find that, hang on a second, we've been done over. And then the money's disappeared in the system. The money's been transferred from one party to another, maybe overseas and back forth, and then it is difficult. Difficult. And then a lot of people are then put in the firing line. The seller solicitors put in the firing line. The buyer solicitors are put into the firing line. If the buyer is buying with a mortgage, the mortgage companies are jumping up and down. A very stressful time for everybody involved in the whole transaction, whether it's the professionals or the buyers or the sellers.
And in our business, it's a core part of our business, buying property direct from sellers. And so for us and also other people maybe watching this, what can we do to avoid falling into a trap like that? How can we protect ourselves?
There's a few things that one can do. I always advise people to use a local estate agent, or for example, to use a local solicitor's firm. Over the years, these things have happened and procedures have been put in place by solicitors' practices. And also the land registry has put, certain procedures in place. Digital identification checks have come out. For example, the firm that I sort of own and work for, they we have a digital ID check. We, on any transaction that we complete, we have, whether it's the buyer, whether it's the seller, we have to do a digital ID check, which complies with the land registry standards, to say this is the registered proprietor, this is the seller. So if you're buying a property, you want to use a competent firm of solicitors who ask the necessary questions to the seller's solicitors to make sure that the seller's solicitor has done their job, and check the ID, and made sure that the client that they're acting for is the actual owner of the property. It's very, very important. And also, like what you said earlier, was that you're in direct talks with the seller. You need to speak to the seller. You need to ask him the questions. If they sort of are portraying that they've owned this property for 10, 15 years, they should know a lot of information. They should know the specifics, and that will basically tell you whether or not there's something wrong or right going on.
So digital ID checks you mentioned, it seems much more common, especially during lockdown. I started to see a huge more amount of this. I remember years ago, we'd have a photocopy of a passport and somebody stamping it to say, yeah, this is a true copy of the original, and that would be classed as your ID. You'd send off somewhere. But now it's much more sophisticated in terms of checking the IDs of clients.
Yes, I mean, my firm, we've always had the policy that we want to see, if we're acting for Sajid Hussain, who's selling a property, we want to see Sajid Hussain in person.
Yes.
And we want him to bring his physical ID in, so his passport and something on his address. So we felt that was quite a tough and sort of strict way of making sure this is the owner of the property and they are selling it. But until about 3 years ago, I got approached by a company who does, basically who do these digital ID checks and said, well, no, how do you know that's a genuine passport? And I started thinking and I said, and he goes, it's everything's becoming digitalized, everything's becoming electronic, and fraudsters are using more complicated ways of, copying, cloning ID. There's no way of you knowing. I said, no, you're absolutely right. So, for example, our digital ID check is sent to our clients on their mobiles. They have to take a picture of themselves, so it's a liveness check. Is this person alive? They have to use their passport. The passport has the NFC chip in there, which bleeps. And they have to also show that they are the registered proprietors or the owners of the property by, for example, having an annual mortgage statement, a council tax bill, to show that not only do they have photo ID, but they have proof of address or ownership that they own it. And the digital ID checker that we use, if that is passed, and we ensure that it is passed, affords us as a firm indemnity from the land registry.
Yeah, right.
So, the God forbid if we were then sort of told after a transaction, hang on a second, this is fraud, it wasn't the seller you were acting for, it was a fraudster, we could rely on the land registry, well, actually it will apply to the buyer solicitors. We can rely on the land registry, and the land registry can say, hang on a second, it's what you call the safe harboring standard.
Okay.
And the land registry can afford us some form of indemnity and get involved.
Some layers of protection there. Okay.
Yes.
So you're a director and a solicitor yourself.
Yes.
Been involved in property probably 15, 16 years. We've done a number of transactions for us as well. And we talk about conveyancing process when someone's buying or selling a property, but then there's also conveyancing firms and then the solicitors. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm happy that you've asked that question. There's a big difference between a conveyancing firm and a solicitor's practice. For example, my firm, we're a solicitor's practice, so we specialize in residential property, commercial property, employment, family, wills and probate. These are the areas that we specialize in. We are solicitors, okay? Conveyancing is a process to transfer one property from one to another.
Okay.
Over the years, there's been a lot of conveyancing factories that have opened up.
And conveyancers don't need to be solicitors?
No.
Okay.
No, conveyancers don't need to be solicitors. For example, I am a solicitor. The people who work for me, they are solicitors or trainee solicitors. Not that there's anything the matter with, with conveyancers, but they solely specialize in property transactions. And there's a big, in my opinion, there's a big difference between using a conveyancing factory, online firm, and a local, well-established high street solicitors practice who take on work as and when they can. They won't just take on loads of work, they won't just take on bulk work. They don't have, junior, inexperienced staff working on the files. With the solicitor's practice, you have, you can see somebody face to face. If you come to my office and you want to see me or any of my other members of staff, you can see us face to face. You want to, see your file, no problem. We have specialists working on a particular transaction, whether that be a property transaction, commercial property transaction, an employment matter. We have a specialist. And I just feel that over the years, the quality of work is far more superior and there's more attention to detail when you're using a local high street solicitor's practice. I mean, in my own firm, we have a certain review procedure that when a file reaches a certain stage, it's reviewed by a senior member of staff, it's reviewed by me or a senior associate, because we want to have them quality procedures in place.
Yes.
I've just felt that over the years with the conveyancing factories out there, they take on a whole load of work. You don't really get the service. You don't really get the expertise. We as solicitors always bump, sort of clash heads with these individuals because they've been trained in a particular way. They have a tick box exercise. If they can't tick that box, they can't go on to the next stage.
Yeah.
And as you know, Sad, somebody's experienced it yourself, sometimes there's not a straightforward answer
Yes.
to everything.
Yes.
Sometimes the buyer has to take certain risks.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The seller has to be flexible and accommodating where possible. So yeah, there is a big difference between solicitors practice and conveyancing firms.
And I guess it's when a seller agrees to sell a property and a buyer agrees to buy, you think fantastic, everybody starts celebrating, the deal's done, we're moving on, we're going to move forward from here. And then this thing goes on in the background.
Yeah.
It could take a few weeks, it could take a few months, and eventually everybody, shake hands again, money exchanges hands, and then get the keys. That process in between, the conveyance process, what actually goes on? What's
the legal process? Yeah. It's a very stressful time. It's a very important time for buyers and sellers, whether it be for investors, like for somebody like yourself who, it's second nature to you. You've gone through numerous properties, you know how the whole system works. But for example, first-time buyers, for families, it's a very stressful time. It's a time which requires, they've gone and seen a property, they've fallen in love with it, and they just want the keys as soon as possible. And also they've been promised certain things by estate agents or mortgage brokers that, you can get the keys in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But what they don't seem to understand is there's a lot of variables. I have a lot of clients come to me and, the first thing is how long it will take. And I say it can take 5 weeks, it can take 4 weeks, it can take 6 weeks. It depends on the seller, it depends on the buyer, it depends on the solicitors. If we're using a local competent firm of solicitors, if we send something to them and they take 3 weeks to reply, that's 3 weeks wasted.
Yes.
If they reply within 24, 48 hours, 72 hours, it speeds up the process. If you have a good estate agent on board, and the agent can pick up the phone, I've had agents pick up the phone and said to me, no, what's the delay? I'll say to them, this is the delay, have a word with the sellers or the seller's solicitors, no problem. Half an hour later, they're back on the phone, it's resolved. So you need an active estate agent as well. It's not just of putting a for sale sign up. The estate agent needs to be involved in the transaction from start to finish.
A good agent would manage that process.
Absolutely.
Their job doesn't finish once the sold sign goes up.
Absolutely.
That's where the work starts.
Absolutely. A good agent would also advise you to use a local firm of solicitors or a competent firm of solicitors or solicitors that they have a good relationship with. So there's a lot of variables that can happen. And I think buyers and sellers don't see this, so they don't appreciate it. For some property, the deeds, the paper could be straightforward. Absolutely no problem. So, we've had many times in which there's a problem or a mistake on the deeds, and that mistake has now manifested its way to me.
Yes.
I've picked up on it, and now it's a big problem,
Yes.
and we have to get it resolved. There's also compliance with the mortgage lenders. When a mortgage offer is issued, a lot of buyers think that once the mortgage offer is issued, that's it. Mortgage company is happy to lend. They're happy with my financial credibility, my income. But what
They've set a criteria as well. They want certain things done.
but what the buyers don't know is that a purchaser solicitor, the mortgage offer is based on two things: your financial credibility, can you afford to pay the mortgage, and number two, the actual property.
Yes.
And they have what you have a CML lender's handbook, and the handbook is about that thick.
Council of Mortgage Lenders guidance.
Exactly. And as solicitors, we have to make sure that we can comply with all their terms and regulations, access ways, rights of repair, rights of maintenance, the marketability, the valuation report. We have to make sure that that 200,000 or 300,000 mortgage which has been put on that property, is it okay? There's no problems with the deeds. There's no problems with the property. Not necessarily in its physical state, but in terms of the legal paperwork.
Yes.
So when, for example, a buyer instructs a solicitor, the buyer, we as purchaser solicitors will get a file open, send out the initial client care letters. The purchaser solicitors will sign the client care letters, return it back with their ID. At which point, then the seller solicitors have also done the same, and the sellers have instructed their own solicitors. Eventually, possibly from the time of instruction, possibly a week later, 8 days later, 9 days later, we as buyers solicitors should receive the contract pack from the seller solicitors.
Yes,
the contract,
that's like the standard terms of here's how the sale is, what it is you're buying or what it is, etc., etc.
Yeah, the contract pack is basically should be complete and have all the necessary information in there. So that would include the contract of sale, the deeds for the properties, any electrical certificates, gas certificates, energy performance certificates. If the seller has done a kitchen extension, the building regulation documents, if they've done a loft conversion, the planning permission documents, the pack should be complete as possible, so it's easier for the buyer's solicitors to look through and navigate through and raise as little inquiries as possible.
Yes. And I guess one of the things that you'll see is, like, for example, you've got the seller's information pack where they tick, who the utility provider is, where the access is for the stopcock, and, who owns what fence, etc., etc. If the seller hasn't completed that information correctly, then this raises more questions, and you don't know about any of those things until you see that those documents.
Yes. Over the years, solicitors used to do when they were acting for sellers, used to do a fantastic job making sure all the information there was complete. I find over the years that's deteriorated. A solicitor acting for a seller needs to make sure that pack is complete. It reduces a lot of aggravation, a lot of inquiries being raised. So when that pack comes over, we as solicitors check through that and make sure, that's the inquiry stage. The inquiries, the investigation of legal title. At the same time, we apply for searches.
And just for somebody who's not quite familiar what that means, just to explain what searches are.
So on residential properties, we usually consist of 3 searches. The first is the local authority search done with the local authority of where the property is located. The second is the water and drainage search and the environmental search. Those 3 searches are...
What do those 3 searches give you in terms of information?
Yeah. So the local authority search is the most important search. It reveals a whole load of information. I've acted for cash buyers, and I've although it's easier for me, I've sort of convinced them, if you don't want to do the other searches, please do the local authority search. The local authority search contains very useful information. If there's been any planning done at the property, any building regulations, applications or entries, if the road is adopted, is it a private road? Are there any financial orders registered against the property? I've had properties in which the previous owner 15 years ago hasn't paid the council tax. Rather than the council pursue them or they can't get anywhere, they've put a financial charge of 10, 15 grand registered on the local search saying that, one day we'll get paid. And then, so that kind of information. It also reveals information not necessarily specific to the property, but also the wider community plan. What's happening in local to the property,
road expansions,
road developments,
potential compulsory purchase orders,
all of that information, very useful information, so the local authority search is done with the local authority, and usually takes the longest to come back. Certain local authorities may take 2 weeks, a week, some can be 3-4 weeks depending on their workload. The second search that we do is the water and drainage search, which basically reveals if there's any public or private sewers running within the boundaries of the property. I'm sure you're aware, Saj, is that if you do an extension and if you're building within 3 meters of a sewer, you have to get a build over agreement. I've had clients who have purchased a property. We've advised them that the kitchen is underneath the sewer. The kitchen was
built over the sewer.
Yeah. And they haven't got a build over agreement. They should have got in touch with Severn Trent, for example, if it's a Birmingham property. And it's not a big procedure, but people just like to sort of skip it.
There's a lot of creative builders and creative house developers as well.
Absolutely. And they think that, the sewer's been there for 10, 15, 20, 100 years. It's not going to cause any problems now. But with the new structure on there and a new load,
the weight and stuff,
new weight, and they're old clay pipes. They're not plastic pipes. They're old clay pipes. Easily. They crack. Severn Trent's come knocking on the door. We need to inspect the sewer. They've come in. That's the kitchen. You got nice tiles. We need to dig up the tiles, and there's nothing which you can do about it. And for example, the Severn Trent,
they have the right to access it.
Yeah, they have the right to access it. That's within the deeds. And if they have a Severn Trent build over agreement, Severn Trent can't do that. There has to be inspection chambers within the garden in which, if anything was to happen with the sewer, they can inspect the sewer without causing damage to the kitchen or the living room or wherever it may be. So that's the water and drainage search. Some water and drainage searches also reveal if the property is connected to a water meter. I've had clients who are car enthusiasts like myself, and they've left
like washing the cars regularly.
like washing their cars regularly, keeping their cars clean, and they've like walked away from a property deal because there's a water meter.
Yeah.
And they say, no, we're not interested. you know, every single time we wash the car, it's going to cost us X amount of money. And the last search that we do is the environmental search. That environmental search reveals, again, more, very useful information concerning the specific property, the land that property is built on, if it's contaminated, if it was former an industrial site, or, if it was a former petrol station. Also, for example, it reveals within the local vicinity, I think up to about 500 meters or thereabouts, the environmental issues concerning that area. Has there been any environmental issues? Has there been any contaminated land reports? Those are the three main important searches. And on certain properties in England and Wales, we may do a coal mining search. We may do a brine search. Parts of the Black Country, Walsall falls within a coal mining area. And we do a coal mining search to reveal if the property is within close proximity of any former old shafts.
Yeah.
So
it could have structural issues, or could have mortgageability issues as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had properties in which have been built directly above a shaft.
Right.
Yeah. We've reported it to the mortgage company. Some mortgage companies have said, nope, bye-bye. And some mortgage companies have strangely come back and said, we're happy to lend. We take our clients' instructions that,
yes,
do you still want to proceed? Some clients say, yeah. We're happy.
So this is the interesting thing. Now, once let's say the sale has been agreed, the seller has sent their information pack in to their solicitor's been instructed correctly, they've done all the client care stuff, then the contract goes out to the buyer's solicitor. The buyer's solicitor then is applying for these various searches that you mentioned, is also looking through, raising inquiries and questions. So this is the point they start discovering and raising questions.
Yes, this is the point.
So this is where actually, how long is a piece of string? Because some problems are answered and addressed very quickly. Some can be quite complex, and some are not very easy to resolve.
Absolutely. It's like, this is where the main investigative, bulk, time-consuming stage is. You're pooling information. That's what you're doing. You're just pooling information. You're pooling information from the seller's solicitors in terms of the legal documents they're giving you. You're pooling information from the mortgage valuation report. If your client's done a survey, you're pooling information there. You're pooling information from the searches. And you're looking through it as a solicitor and saying, is there any problems? Is there any issues? Do I need to sort of pick up the phone to my client now, before we go any further?
Yes.
And this process can take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And on some properties, it's very straightforward. And on some properties, it can be time consuming.
Yes.
And what happens then is that various information is exchanged between the buyers and the sellers. And once, like, for example, I'm talking from a purchaser solicitor's angle, that information is pooled in, we get it all in, and we can provide a detailed report in layman's English to our client.
Yes.
Saying, this is the property that you're buying. This is what the deeds are saying. This is what the boundaries are saying. The seller has said there's been a kitchen extension done. They have the building regulation certificate. They don't. The boiler was serviced 12 months ago, or there's been problems with the electrics.
Yes.
The local authority search reveals this. And I have found over the years that report that we send to buyers, they don't take the time to read it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's very, very important.
Yeah. And I also find the quality of that report varies from firm to firm as
Absolutely,
well.
Yeah. We provide detailed and straightforward understanding to our clients, because not everybody's a solicitor. There's some legal jargon which a lot of people don't understand, and we provide it to them, and we give a copy of everything that we've got on our file in terms of enclosures and searches, and we give it to the client. The client and the buyer should read that. The buyer should read that and say, hang on a second, that doesn't look right. That doesn't sound right. And
also, you haven't visited the property, so you're relying on what you're being told. So, for example, like access is a classic one where there's supposed to be some access on paper, and when you go there, you think, actually, there's no access. This has been fenced off. There's no gate here. No one's had access to it here for years. But as a solicitor's not aware of that. Only the buyer or the seller would be aware of that.
Absolutely, Saj. I mean, I always tell my clients, you are automatically by default in a better position than me. And they say, how? I go, you visited the property, you've seen the property, you've had 2-3 viewings.
Yes.
You need to report back to me if there's something in this paperwork which, if the seller has ticked, there's no kitchen extension, and he's done an 18-foot, the kitchen extension, I'm none the wiser as a solicitor. this is what the seller solicitor has told, this is what the seller has told the seller solicitor.
Yes.
That information has been passed to me, whether it's a mistake or whether it's been done intentionally. You should raise with me and say, hang on a second, no, this is wrong. There is a boiler at the property. There is a kitchen extension done. There's a problem with this fence. This fence doesn't look the way it should be on the plan. Boundaries is a big, big issue in England and Wales. This, I'm sure you've seen reports in which people have taken parties over a 2-foot wide strip of land because of the fact that we in England and Wales, the land registry basically states, HM Land Registry, that the plans that are produced are a guidance.
Yes.
They're not specific.
Yeah.
And a lot of people mentally think, well, a boundary is a fence.
Yeah.
A boundary is a wall. Not necessarily. A boundary could be a running river.
Yeah.
A boundary could be a hedge. Certain boundaries move over time. And boundary disputes, I'm sure you're aware, Sajid, can run into hundreds and thousands of pounds because there's no definite answer, And
you'll get different opinions, different experts will give you different points.
So this information we give all back to the buyers, to the buyers. The buyers arrange an appointment, come in and see us. Any concerns, we then go back to the solicitors, raise that with the seller's solicitors, make sure the buyer is completely happy. At the same time, we're checking their proof and source of funds. And then we move on to, believe it or not, the first stage, which is the exchange stage.
Yes, yes.
So all this work that's taken 4 or 5 weeks doesn't really mean anything in the sense that there's no legally binding agreement.
Yes. There's no commitment at that stage. Either party can walk away.
Yeah, either party can walk away. The buyer can just wake up and say, I've had a bad dream. I don't want to buy that property. The seller could do the same. So that leads us up to the exchange stage. The exchange stage, the buyer and seller are happy. All the information's okay. The buyer solicitors receive the monies from their client, which is usually a 10% deposit. We've got the green light from the mortgage company as well.
Because just on the mortgage company, they will have certain criteria that you have to fulfill.
Yes.
For the the legal work that you're doing for the buyer, you're also doing some legal work for the lender as well.
Definitely.
And there might be other specialist reports, surveys, etc., that might need to be requested and done as well.
Yeah.
These things will take time.
Absolutely, Saj. And I just want to quickly touch on that point. A lot of our clients, or a lot of buyers, shall I say, they don't seem to understand is that we're acting for them in their best interests as buyers. But if they're buying with a mortgage, we're also acting for the mortgage company.
Yes.
And just because you as a buyer may be happy with a particular thing, your mortgage company may not be the same.
Yes. And you have a legal duty.
We have
to declare certain things to them.
Because what I was talking about earlier, the CML Lender's Handbook, if we can't comply with that, we have to report certain things to the mortgage companies. And the mortgage companies will come back and say, and mortgage companies are very strange creatures, honestly. You could report something to them thinking they're going to definitely withdraw the mortgage offer. They're not going to be happy with this arrangement. And
they might be okay with it.
Perfectly okay. And sometimes you report something to them which is very
minor,
and they're completely
they're not happy.
So strange. So we've got the green light from all angles. We've got the green light from the buyers. We've got the green light from the seller solicitors. We've got the green light from the mortgage company. We received the 10% deposit.
That's the time where everybody comes in and signs.
Signs all the legal documents. We, for example, have my practice. I want to see you in person. I preferably want to see you in person. We do have clients, established clients who are based in London and overseas and so forth, which we've seen in person before. But generally, we want to see Sajid Hussain in person, because it's not a packet of crisps you're buying. Yes. It's an investment of £200,000-400,000. Everything's signed up, and we're pushing towards now exchange. Exchange is the first legal process in which the buyer is committed to buy, the seller is committed to sell.
Yes.
A 10% deposit is put into place, which is paid from the buyers to the seller's solicitors, and the legal contracts are exchanged that, we're buying, you're selling, and at the same time, a completion date is put in to the contract.
Yes. So so just to pick up on a couple of those things.
Yes.
So this is now, everyone's locked in and committed now into this agreement. So that's the point where we talk about people don't kind of back out, but they could back out, but generally it's not common.
Yeah.
But it's not 100% guarantee at that point as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's it's an agreement between the buyer and the seller. They've agreed to buy. They've agreed to sell. The buyer has agreed, given a 10% deposit. We've put in a completion date. It's legally binding. It's legally binding on the seller to sell, and it's legally binding on the buyer to buy. As you said, that if the buyer decides to back out, they're going to lose their 10% deposit. If the seller decides to back out, okay, they won't lose their deposit, but the buyer can then pursue other legal costs. The buyer may have put a big deposit on removals. The buyer may have put a big, sort of certain deposits on furniture. And the buyer can then pursue a civil claim. Whether they're successful or not is a different thing, but, will pursue a civil claim against the seller and sue them for costs.
That they were incurred, yeah.
In 16 years that I've been doing it, I've never come across anybody.
It's very rare.
Very rare.
But it could happen.
But it can happen.
And then the deposit as well, we talk about 10%, but the 10% is more customary rather than it has to be 10%, is that right?
This is true.
I say that because I've done stuff on £1.
Your situations are completely different. Yeah, your situations are completely different. I've acted for you before. It can be 10%, it can be 5%, it can be a specific figure. The norm is 10% on residential properties. Sometimes when people want to pay less, and then certain chains develops. For example, sometimes a buyer is selling for, a buyer is buying for more, seller's buying for less. So usually it's 10% of the purchase price, but it can be less in agreement with the seller and the buyer. Obviously, it makes sense for the seller to secure 10%. If the buyer goes bust or the buyer doesn't decide to proceed with it, at least the seller can then forfeit 10% of the buyer's deposit. And then we've exchanged contracts and we've put in a date. And that's the second stage, which is what you call completion. The date of completion is put into the contract. It's a fixed date. It can vary with mutual agreement between the buyer and the seller. The buyer can make a request, the seller can agree to disagree. I've had situations, again, for example, with the kind of work that you deal with, in which completion is on notice. A big investor like yourself, they can say, okay, we're going to do certain work to the property. Can take 2 weeks, can take 3 weeks, can take a month. We don't really know. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you 10 days notice to complete. And, my solicitor will send you a notice document and then we can complete within 10 days. The completion day is the stressful day for everybody, I would say. For the buyers, for the sellers, for the estate agents, for the solicitors as well. It's the actual day in which the seller moves out of the property, if they're living there, and the buyer moves in. The money is transferred from solicitor A, buyer account, to solicitor B, the seller's account. Once the money hits the seller's solicitor's account, the keys are then released at the estate agents, and the buyer goes and picks up the keys.
And that's really when they should celebrate.
Yes.
Rather than at the beginning when they've agreed to buy, because there's such a big gap. Now, this process, as I said, it might be a month, it could be 2 months, sometimes it could be way longer, occasionally it could be way shorter as well. And in this country, it's also very common knowledge that about 1 in 3 deals that have been agreed fall out of bed. They never reach that completion stage. Well, why do you think that's the case? Why do so many, such a large percentage, never make it to the completion stage?
I think it's less now, personally. I think over the years, going back 10 years, 12 years ago, there was a lot of stock, a lot of housing stock on the market. If you speak to estate agents now, they've got 3, 4, 5, 6 interested buyers per property. They can't get enough housing stock. I think buyers are more serious now in buying, and I think sellers are more serious now in selling. Before, we used to have, I used to have a lot of transactions that used to, go abortive. And they go abortive for many reasons. They can go abortive for personal circumstances surrounding the buyer, personal circumstances surrounding the seller. They can go abortive for legal reasons. There's an issue which can't be resolved. The seller's stuck in their ways, or the seller's solicitor stuck in their ways, the buyer is stuck in their ways, or the buyer's solicitor stuck in their ways, and there's no flexibility, and it can't be resolved. Again, I've dealt with you, Saj, in which you've picked up the phone to me and you said, Noor, what's the problem? I said, Saj, this is the problem. This is the risk. how do you feel about it?
Yeah. Yeah, so we would take a view on that. How big is that risk? What does that mean for us? What the implications are?
Yeah.
And there'll be times where I'll say, I appreciate what you've said,
Yeah.
but we're doing this anyway, even though you've got some reservations.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've acted for clients in which they've done, a kitchen extension, for example, or a living room, the extension, and there's no documents whatsoever. There's no planning permission documents. There's no building regulations. Absolutely a shabby job. Spoke to my client and said, not really fussed. I'm doing a full revamp anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to knock that bill, that part of the property down. So it doesn't really concern me.
Yeah. But a different buyer might do that very differently.
Yes.
Yeah, they might have a
first-time buyer with a family who's just about put a deposit together, and they'll say, well, that's going to cost me an extra £5,000, £6,000, £7,000. We can't afford to do that. We need the certificate. First-time buyers are very nervous. Investors are more relaxed, like yourselves. They know. So these are some of the reasons which a transaction falls through. I've also realized that people don't like talking to each other.
Yeah. That's such a big learning for us. There's so many deals we've done which would never have completed had we not been in good communication with the other side.
Yeah.
With the seller, we're talking to them regularly. And even when I've been selling property, when there's been things that have come up, and I like to speak to the seller, the buyer, and say, to understand, my solicitor said this, this, and this. Okay, let's talk about what that means. What's the significance of that? Your solicitor is your professional advisor. They are going to advise you accordingly. You also need to make a decision what you're comfortable with. What does it mean? And there's so many times it's just a misunderstanding that can quite easily be resolved, because you mentioned there's so many people involved in this process. And if the buyer and seller communicate directly, they can resolve, or with the agent, a good agent, get these things resolved very quickly.
Everybody needs to work together, whether it's the estate agents. I've had many times in which, for example, my junior colleagues who've been working, they've hit a brick wall with the other side solicitors. And I've said, have you picked up the phone? No, we've just been playing a game of tennis with
don't like
emails.
to talk with each other.
I'm like, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and speak to the solicitor on the other side and make it clear to them, listen, my client is eager to buy this property. Your client is eager to sell. How can we resolve this particular issue? Estate agents do really help. As I said to you, if you have a good local estate agent, they can speak. If I'm acting for the buyer, we can't necessarily speak. Well, we can't legally speak to the seller. The estate agent can. My client can. And it's resolving the particular issue. And just by talking, having an open approach, having a conversation. I had a solicitor who telephoned me yesterday who had a problem, and within 5 minutes I was able to resolve it over the phone. She felt very confident and comfortable, and we had a good, healthy conversation. And by this morning, that issue was resolved. And I feel that the relationship between solicitors and solicitors is better. But is what I was saying about earlier, is when you're using a online conveyancing factory, you can't even get a hold of the particular people.
Or it might be a very junior person dealing with it. I can't really answer any questions anyway, because the file needs to progress to such a stage before somebody more experienced actually even looks at it.
Exactly.
And that can be quite frustrating as a buyer or a seller. If you're on that
absolutely. End. So transactions can fall through for a lot of reasons. They're happening less now, I feel anyway. At my particular firm, they're happening a lot less. I just think it's because there's a shortage of housing stock. But I think dialogue is everything, and communication is everything. If you have your client on board with you and you have a good relationship with the inside solicitors, a good relationship with the estate agents, you can have we've had 3-way conversations with the estate agent and the seller solicitors to say, okay, this is the issue. We're not going to argue about who's right or wrong. I have my opinion and I'm entitled to it. You have your opinion and you're entitled to it. But how can we resolve this? Let's find a solution, because your client's going to be significantly, at a loss.
Out of pocket.
My client's paid for my costs and surveys and so forth. So let's come to a solution amicably and get it over the line.
Yes. I often say that, there's a few key people in our business that are really important. Your power team, sometimes people refer to as that, and your solicitor is one of those, because they're the ones that are guiding you through the legal minefield that you may not necessarily be aware about. And I often have conversations with people who may be not being completely open with their solicitor. And I say, look, at the end of the day, you have to have that relationship with your solicitor, because they're guiding you. And if you're not being completely transparent, how can they guide you well through that process?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good point that you've picked up on. And I feel solicitors also almost have to fight with their clients to win their trust. That shouldn't be the case. When a client come to see me, I say to them, you're paying me for one thing, to act in your best interests.
Yes.
And if we bump into each other at Asda or Tesco, we'll say hello.
Yes.
But that's what you're primarily paying me for. You're paying us to make sure that your interests are protected.
Yes.
Therefore, we need to have a very, very good relationship, and you need to be as honest and as open with me as possible.
Yes.
And you need to listen to what I say.
Yes.
Not just hear it, listen.
Yes.
I feel, and I always say to my clients, the relationship that you have with your solicitor, your accountant, and your doctor should be the same.
Yes.
If you go to a doctor and you're not really telling him, why you're getting headaches, he can't really help you.
No.
You could tell him a whole load of fibs, and he will possibly give you prescribed medication.
Or misdiagnose the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Same thing with solicitors. If you're not honest and open with solicitors, they can only go by the information that you provide to them. And I just feel that over the years, this whole online estate agency, online conveyancing, that relationship between client and solicitors has moved away. A lot of buyers or sellers seem to believe everything estate agents say. Now, there's a lot of good estate agents out there. A lot of good. A lot of firms that I deal with, and they will give the best advice to whether it's a seller or the buyer. But the same relationship doesn't exist between the between the seller and his client, or the buyer and his client. It doesn't exist. And what people need to understand, whether it's first-time buyers, whether it's investors, is that you need to have an open, good, healthy relationship with your solicitor to make sure that whatever they're doing, that they're acting in your best interests, and that there's not going to be any nasty surprises.
Yes.
And the relationship is key. The solicitor is only going to advise you for your best interests. That's the first responsibility a solicitor has. And I think this relationship is key to the whole transaction. We have sometimes clients in which who are unreasonable. They will ring you at all times or ring you several times a day. You have to be reasonable. Yes. The solicitor has many clients and meetings and so forth. So there has to be, a boundary in terms of, the responsibility and just being sensible. A lot of my clients have my mobile number. I don't have a problem with that. So the relationship is key.
Yes,
absolutely.
And there's a number of solicitors, including self, I had a conversation with way out of office hours,
yes.
And not normal working hours, but we don't abuse that relationship.
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've had clients reach out to me, in the evenings because they have a genuine worry, or a worry which is genuine to them, like a first-time buyer. They've been told something by the estate agent, or something's popped up. No problem. Give us a call. 5-10 minutes. We'll give you time. But we have sometimes clients who are ringing us like numerous times a day. Is there any update? Is there any... Unfortunately, it doesn't deal. It doesn't work like that. We're waiting on information to come in, and also rushing is not a good thing. You need to use a solicitor who's competent and has the necessary practices in place to avoid delays. But I think by rushing creates more risks.
Yeah. There are certain times where, as an investor, for example, we need to do a transaction very quickly. And there have been times we've done things in a very short space of time, but we are taking risks in doing that because we know we are missing certain things out. There's some unknowns, but the deal has to be very good for us to wanting to take that risk. But it's not the norm to do that.
No.
So when you're quoting a client, whether it's to do the buy side or the sell side, you've got fees that you set, then there'll be some additional things as well. Your disbursements, stamp duty, things you might need to pay, etc., etc. So when they get a completion statement, you get a breakdown of costs. The fee that's set, you're estimating how much time you think you will spend on that. And then that's been spread over those 5-8 weeks, whatever it might be. And I guess from a client point of view, it's not easy always for them to understand, I'm paying this amount of money to get this thing done. But the solicitor might be spending half an hour there, 45 minutes there, to kind of manage that case along. How do you guesstimate how much time you need to allocate to a case?
With property-related work, whether it's commercial property or residential property, buying and selling, for example, houses, flats, apartments, businesses, commercial properties, it's usually a fixed fee.
Yes.
You would estimate that. The particular solicitor that you're using needs to have a transparent, it's actually a legal requirement as well, needs to have transparent and open, an open policy when it comes to our fees. Our fees are like that. When you telephone us, we will quote you a fixed fee, which includes your legal fees, your VAT, your disbursements, your land registry fees, your stamp duty, for example. And we're happy to email that. The initial client care letter that we send out has all the fees listed. Certain work like employment or, family work is obviously not fixed fee, it's per hour. But with property related work, the fees are fixed. Usually we get it right, but we do advise clients, and again, very, very few, I would say even a handful, in which we've quoted on a particular transaction, whether somebody's buying a property or selling a property, and it's just manifested its way out of that. But what the policy that we have is that before we do any work, extra work, we will advise Saj Hussain, Saj, we quoted you a fee of X. It's not this. It's actually Y. We haven't done any extra work.
Yes.
Do we have your agreement? Do you want to come in and speak to us so we can show you why it's extra work? Do we have your agreement to carry on with the work at the new fee? We won't just steam ahead and, do extra loads of work and then expect our client to pay our extra fees. This is not legally acceptable. It's not morally acceptable. Yes. It's not ethical. So solicitors usually get it right. With the main bulk of the work, they usually get it right. There has been, there can be circumstances in which them fees can be significantly higher. But a good, competent solicitor should advise you first and not hand you with a big, heavy bill after.
Yes. When looking for a property solicitor, what would you say are the few key things that people should be looking for?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. I think use an established high street solicitors practice who have been in the game for a long time, who have specialist property solicitors, whether it's commercial property or whether it's residential property.
Yes. Somebody
that you can see, a physical person, somebody that you can go into. My office, our firm, we have an open door policy. If we're free, happy to come down and see you in one of our meeting rooms, no problem. Can you see a physical person? Can you speak to somebody on the phone? Yes. Preferably, you want to have one person dealing with your file from start to finish. That's what we have. I will speak to the clients at the start. We'll get the file open. All the work is supervised by me, but your case handler, your day-to-day runnings is done by, this particular individuals. You have their direct number, you have their email. If you're not happy with their service, is there somebody senior that you can speak to? Yes, I want to speak to Noor. I'm not happy about this. Can I come in and see you? Yeah, no problem. Come in and speak to us. So these are the important things that you need to look in when looking for a property solicitor. Don't go for the cheapest price. Don't go for the most expensive. Go for somebody, in between, in the middle. Ask around. Go, a lot of, for example, our work that we get is based on recommendations. They've acted for me. I've had no problems. I had a very good service. Look at their Google reviews. Look at how long the firm has been there for. Look at, do they have specialists that are, do they have a specialist in in this particular environment? And I have many people who come to me who say, I'm using XYZ online, can't get a hold of them, can't speak to them, they're not replying to my emails, it's been so much amount of time, the estate agents can't get a hold of them. And I'm saying, well, why did you, when you've got locally 10 solicitors firms, why did you go and use somebody based, out in the manor, an online firm, because it was £200-300 cheaper, but you're buying a £300,000 property, and in the grand scheme of things, you're paying for quality. You want to make sure that solicitor is doing, or that firm is doing the job to the best of their ability.
Yes.
Because if a mistake is made then, and that mistake is gonna stay on the deeds, stay on the searches until when you come to sell.
Yes.
That could be 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line.
And that could be the future buyer could have a problem which could render you in a position where you're struggling to sell your property because there's an issue that's got missed in the past. As a number of times I've purchased property where something should have got picked up in a previous transaction that wasn't. You think, well, why wasn't this dealt with previously? Why are we looking at it now?
Absolutely.
But it happens.
It happens. I mean, we pick up on things, and I'm not saying like in a boasting or ego way, but we're picking up things because we have a certain way. So for example, on my particular practice, we have the main person responsible for that particular transaction looking at all the deeds and the searches, and they will raise the questions.
Yes.
But then we have another review process in which an independent, fresh set of eyes looks over and said, have you missed something off? Or you shouldn't be asking this, you should be asking that. So it's giving quality rather than quantity. And we sometimes pick up on mistakes, sloppy conveyancing, and mistakes can genuinely happen. But we pick up on mistakes that going back 15, 20 years ago, and the seller will say, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wasn't informed of that. I've been living in this house for the past 30 years. So, and mistakes can manifest its way through.
Yeah. And there hasn't been a lot of change in the way that we buy or sell houses. I remember we had a hit pack for a little while, but there hasn't really been much change. What do you see as potential change in maybe, say, 10 years from now? How do you think it'll be different that we are buying and selling property?
Yeah, I mean, there was a report the other day in the Law Society Gazette as well. There is a great push and drive towards electronic, e-conveyancing, making it digitalized, the buying and selling process as much as possible. In the UK, Land Registry, Her Majesty's Land Registry, are rolled out a lot of e-ways of making the process is easier, simpler, streamlining the process as well. There's also talks in which when one is selling a property, they sort of are providing as much information as possible to the estate agents. So similar to the hip packs back in the days, searches are there, the property information forms are completed, the deeds are all available, similar to, so for example, like an auction pack, available there and then. So the buyer or interested buyer can have all the information there, which reduces the time scale and also makes it easier for the whole transaction, that the information is easily and readily available right at the very start of the transaction. So there is a push, in making things, as easy as possible, as streamlined as possible. Electronic signatures. COVID was a very big wake up call.
Yeah.
A very, very big wake up call for the legal profession.
Yes. Especially
in the property market. How can we now we can work from home. How can we get signatures? How can we get electronic signatures? The whole the whole digital ID sort of standards that have come out as well. HM Land Registry saying, if these standards are met, we will indemnify to reduce property fraud. Electronic searches, making the deeds electronically. I mean, obviously now, there's many unregistered properties out there, but the majority, but the properties in the West Midlands are registered at the Land Registry. So again, deeds are available electronically. Land Registry is electronic. Searches are being made electronic as well. So this whole drive, but how long it will take?
Yes, yeah. It can happen. The technology is there. Definitely. And I think you're a perfect example of COVID pushed things very quickly.
Yeah.
The technology is already there. They didn't invent it overnight. They just accepted it and started using it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the law profession was very old, rigid
very
profession,
traditional way
of doing things. But as I said to you, COVID sort of woke up a lot of people and said, right, we need to change now because other professions and other professionals have changed, they have developed. We're still stuck in the way that we think works. If it works, don't break it. It works. But I think, there are a lot of changes, but I'm a bit old school like that. The more drive electronically, the more risks as well.
Yes.
You know, fraudsters are getting very, very, very smart.
Sophisticated.
Very, very sophisticated, absolutely, in, you know, how they are doing things. You know, you won't have a client coming into, you know, a fraudster coming into your office.
Yes.
You know, we have numerous
They're doing
emails.
things remotely, which is lower risk for them, which means they'll be more ambitious in what the type of frauds they will try.
Loads of phishing emails. We get numerous.
Yeah, we had one of those ones. And just to clarify for somebody listening, what I mean by that is where a request, you're going to send some money, the email is intercepted and a different account number is given, and it looks like the email is genuine, but actually it isn't.
Yeah.
And the money could end up somewhere else.
And people have lost hundreds of thousands. I can't exactly remember the exact details, but I remember going back about 2 years ago, well-known practitioner, sole practitioner who's been in the profession, you know, somebody that we look up to for, 30, 40 years, was approached by her bank. She thought it was a genuine call. It came through, for example, let's use Barclays, for example, Barclays number, everything came through. This particular fraudster knew the names and the details and everything about this particular solicitor, and was told that her account was hacked.
Right.
And that she now needed to move her client's money, which was a lot of money, into another account.
Okay.
And she did.
Wow.
Come Monday, she went into the branch and very quickly realized they knew nothing about it.
Wow.
It was a fraudster, and she lost a lot of money. Wow. And unfortunately, she had to close.
Yeah.
So, it's and again, the property industry is very fast moving, fast paced. There's a lot of pressure, on solicitors to do certain things in certain times, Friday completions, end of the month. Perfect opportunity for fraudsters to get something through the door if they can.
Yeah, because of pressure and people trying to get things done quickly. And as I said, that's where mistakes happen. And solicitors, they'll have the PI cover, the professional indemnity insurance. And I hear for many firms, it's so expensive just to try and practice. There was a firm I used to use many years ago who did very creative, let's say, transactions. And they stopped trading because they couldn't get the PI cover for the kind of stuff they were doing.
Yeah, professional indemnity insurance has gone through the roof. People, there's been, for a few reasons, dodgy solicitors, fraudsters. It's like car insurance. The more claims that are being made, the more that's coming out of the pot. For somebody like me and you, who's never made a claim in their life, it will affect us.
Yes.
Professional indemnity insurance has gone through the roof.
Yeah. So I really struggled to insure my Range Rover this year. So if anybody wants to buy a cheap Range Rover, just give me a shout.
Yeah. I was told that some parts of London, they've even completely stopped insuring them.
Yeah, I had a lot of difficulty trying to get insurance.
Yeah, definitely. So professional indemnity insurance, has gone through the roof for those firms like ourselves who deal with property and high risk transactions. House prices have gone up. With that, your indemnity goes up. We're dealing with value transactions, £400,000-500,000 easy.
And it's for most people, it's the single highest value transaction they'll ever do in their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is very, very true. They've got their deposit, or they've made investments. They have inheritance. There's a lot of money at stake. And your solicitor is under a great responsibility to make sure that they get it right.
Yes.
And it is very stressful for solicitors, for buyers. I mean, I was at a meeting probably 2 days ago, and I received a phone call from a law firm in London. Never heard of them, never spoke to them. For some reason, somebody gave them my number.
Okay.
And said, we can't get indemnity renewal.
Right.
Can you help?
Wow.
So I put him in touch with the broker that we use. And they go that we've got until Friday.
Otherwise they have to stop trading.
That's stop trading.
Yeah.
We've been declined insurance for whatever reason. And, we're panicking.
Because they could be perceived as high risk, what they're doing, or a portion of their business is high risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, open to claims.
Yeah.
No, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I feel like we can talk for hours. Maybe that opens you up for a part 2.
Yeah.
What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yes, Wildings Solicitors, Washwood Heath Road, telephone number 012-786-2555. You can telephone our offices, you can ask for me. We've been there for quite a while now.
It was 70s the firm was established.
Yeah, the firm is probably one of the oldest law practices not the oldest law practices in the West Midlands. 1970s, I believe. I've been at the firm for about...
You haven't been there that long?
No. I've been at the firm for about 14, 15 years and became a director about 3 years ago. But yeah, I'm happy to accommodate and help. And they can, and I'm sure you put up,
we'll put the details on screen and description as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good speaking to somebody like yourself as well, Sajid, because you have a lot of experience. I've dealt with you personally as well in, with your transactions as well. And there's a lot of information that people need to be given. A lot of buyers, the courses that you run is very informative. A lot of education out there, and a lot of people just need to be educated, in a respectful way, and by having individuals like yourselves and telling them, this is actually the way, not what you've been told or what you've read, for somebody who's actually on the ground doing it, is fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you. Hopefully this has been very educational as well for our
hopefully
today.
So. Hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saj.
Much appreciated. Thank you.